During this edition of Storm Watch, we're going to feature once again Tropical Storm Bonnie and Hurricane Danielle. We'll let you know exactly what's going to be happening with these systems as we see it right now for the next few days. Let's check in with our tropical update, and we'll first of all feature Tropical Storm Bonnie, downgraded from hurricane status last night. And again, the center of circulation as of this time, 5 o'clock this morning, Eastern Daylight Time, 39.3 degrees north, 69.7 degrees west, or that puts it about 635 miles southwest of Sable Island in Nova Scotia. Top sustained winds 65 miles per hour. There could be some higher gusts, but again, we are talking about a strong tropical storm at the present time. One that's getting poorly organized as the hours go by now. It is moving northeasterly at 17 miles per hour, a lot faster than it has been during the last couple of days when it was crawling up the coastline and did all that damage around Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Virginia yesterday morning. And once again, the pressure is on the rise, 993 millibars. Let's talk about what's happening right now. These are canceled. The tropical storm warnings right now for the Cape and much of southeastern Mass are gone. We don't have to worry about that, as once again, Bonnie is going to be taking this course and really bypassing the Cape by a fairly good margin now, unlike what we thought was going to happen just 24 hours ago. Here's a look at the satellite picture, and it looks like we've got a little bit of a jump here. And tell you what, we'll just take a look at this real quickly, and you can see exactly what is happening. And the bulk of the convection right now, as well east of the Cape, moving on towards the north. Let's see what's happening as far as the radar. We'll jump into that right now, and once again we can show you that we are looking at once again heavier rain bands again right around Boston, Mass, and over the southeastern areas of Massachusetts, right around the Cape, but overall not a big deal as of right now. Hurricane Danielle, the latest advisory, 5 o'clock this morning, Eastern Daylight Time. Its center of circulation 24.6 degrees north or 68.9 degrees west. 370 miles to the east of San Salvador. Top sustained winds 90 miles per hour. It's been holding its own now for the last couple of days. As you will see in a minute, it still looks poorly disorganized. West-northwesterly bound at 14. Steady course right towards the southeastern coast of the United States. But again, that's going to be changing. We'll let you know about that in a couple of more seconds. And the pressure again is at 989 millibars. What does Danielle look like on a satellite picture? Well, you can see again, it is not a healthy looking system right now, that is for sure. There is an upper level ridge off towards its north, but across northern Florida, which is right here, there's also an upper level low, and we think that in combination with a very strong tropical pressure over the eastern United States, which will be getting stronger as the weekend goes on, that Bonnie once again is going to make that Danielle is going to start curving very rapidly off towards the northwest and eventually the north and eventually the northeast by the time the weekend comes to a close. As at this point, most of the computer models are saying no threat to the United States, but still that's a little bit too early to really give the all clear and sound the all clear for places like the Eastern Carolinas. So stay tuned to the Weather Channel. We'll let you know the very latest on Danielle during the next couple of days. But looks like better news, especially for South Florida. Looks like you folks are out of harm's way right now. But still for the Eastern Carolinas, we'll keep our eyes on this. It has not made the turn as of yet. Expected to do so by later on this afternoon and certainly by early morning tomorrow. This is Tropical Storm Howard, the only action right now over the eastern Pacific Ocean. Again, its top sustained winds 40 miles per hour, westerly bound at 9 miles per hour into cooler waters, expected to continue to diminish with intensity as we look at the next couple of days. And again, this pressure beginning to rise, a weakening system right now at 1,005 millibars. From the eastern Pacific, we're going to jump over to the western Pacific Ocean right now, and we are going to talk about this. And this is Typhoon Rex. This is Japan right in through here. Rex is on a beeline right now, right towards the coastline of Japan within the next 36 to 48 hours. Expected to make landfall somewhere just east of Tokyo. This could become a big weather story for Japan, as again it could be looking at a major hurricane hitting its coastline. And again, this top sustained winds right now 125 miles per hour, so it could really do a lashing on the coast of Japan just east of Tokyo when it makes landfall by sometime later tomorrow or tomorrow night, our time. Let's check out the forecast real quickly. And once again, dry weather for much of the upper Midwest, much of the western part of the country. Still tracking Danielle and also Bonnie off towards the north for Bonnie and off towards the west-northwest for Danielle.
All this atmospheric energy coming together.
Drama, passion, suspense, tropospheric undulations. Every night on Weather Center PM.
Now's the time to discover the great selection of all 1998 Oldsmobile cars and trucks available at Discover Days. Consider the Cutlass, winner of the AAA Top Car Award, or the 88, voted a Best Buy.
Comcast Home Theater pay-per-view. You've got it because you've got Comcast.
Every day is new. We tell you about the weather right now. How will it affect where you're headed? What about your plans? People count on us to get them through the day. I love that.
Right now, it's your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
And this edition of Storm Watch takes a look at our tropical systems, in particular Bonnie weakening, heading away from the U.S., Danielle holding its own and still dangerously close to the Bahamas and the southeast coast of the U.S., and then there's Howard and Rex in the Pacific. So let's check them all out for you. And we begin with Bonnie. Bonnie showing signs of weakening as it speeds out over the cooler waters of the North Atlantic. Checking the water temperatures here, they're running right around 70 degrees where Bonnie is located. So water is much cooler here than farther south where the waters are running in the low to mid 80s. So that's one of the reasons why you see the system weakening. 40.9 north, 67.1 west. That's the 11 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center. Center circulation about 420 miles southwest of Sable Island, Nova Scotia. Winds now decreased to 60 miles an hour. Movement speeding up to the northeast at 25, and a gradual turn more to the east is expected. As we take a look at what's happening with the current radar scene for you, we do show you the precipitation moving away from the northeast coast of the United States. Closing in, there you can see Bonnie here swirling about and pulling away. Clouds are clearing out in western New England here, New York City and Philadelphia. But in southeastern New England, it's still cloudy and dreary. And that breeze is coming out of the north and northwest as the circulation center right here continues to spin away. And notice out over the open waters, this is where we see the thicker clouds and the heavier, squallier weather. Just check on some ship reports in through here. And there's some pretty stiff winds coming in out of the southwest, speeds of about 20 to 60 miles an hour as we're getting closer to the center of circulation. In the wake of our system, we're seeing the rains winding down, just a few leftover sprinkles here off the southeast coast. But we did see some heavy rains in southeast Massachusetts early this morning around Plymouth and Whitehorse Beach. Reports of 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain. That's now tapering off. Hyannis picked up about 1.5 inches. So now just a few sprinkles and cloudy skies, and we should see some brightening later on today. As we head farther south, Danielle still with us and still moving west-northwesterly. And you can see it's in a rather dangerous looking position here. Winds 90 miles an hour right near the center of circulation. This is a very compact storm as opposed to Bonnie, which was all spread out. 25.1 north, 70.1 west. Hurricane hunters have been investigating. Now the latest report from the hurricane hunters, pressure now 987 millibars. Here you can see the Bahamas. Here's Florida. Here comes Danielle, and it is a real compact storm. The eye being reported at about 8 miles in diameter. It's all cloud covered, and you can see it's just a little tiny system here. But this is where we have those powerful winds up to 90 miles an hour. This is forecast to turn more towards the northwest with time, but until this storm does make its turn, residents of Florida, southeast coast, and the northern Bahamas want to keep close tabs on this one here. But it is forecast to decelerate and turn more towards the north here as it starts to feel a trough coming down into the southeast U.S. Disturbed weather showing up in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico with a tropical wave. There are indications we may see a weak low try to develop here as we head into the beginning of next week. So if you're headed to the Gulf Coast, you want to keep a close eye on that system. Farther out in the Atlantic, see a weak low out here moving its way west to the Cape Verdes. Still a long time to keep an eye on this one, but it does bear watching down the road.
Tropical weather systems are affected by so many variables.
We constantly monitor the situation.
If someone is safer by watching the Weather Channel, that's what it's all about.
Paying too much for car insurance isn't
A tropical storm and has moved out of harm's way. Despite swimming advisories, surfers in New Jersey are catching some big waves generated by Bonnie's hurricane winds. The state escaped any serious damage, but parts of North Carolina and Virginia were not so lucky. Damage estimates there could reach $2 billion. But CNN's Charles Ziwi says the cleanup is already underway.
Using boats, bobcats, and rakes, the cleanup began. Storm boards came down at Larry Smith's furniture store.
You see how wet it is.
Driving rain and a leaky roof drenched thousands of dollars in couches.
Could have got a whole lot worse. Everybody's, real fortunate, and we're real lucky to be here.
A small army of utility crews is reporting rapid progress in restoring electricity.
It doesn't look like there's near the damage I thought it would be.
Traffic streamed back to the Outer Banks and pleasure craft headed out from Safe Harbor. At Topsail Beach, where houses were minced by Hurricane Fran 2 years ago, crews cleared away tons of sand. Roofers were busy, but most damage was light.
These doors got blown out last time.
Chiropractor Don Austin, wife Pat, and their granddaughter Taylor came back to find Bonnie had hardly touched their beach cottage, which was trashed by Fran.
There's so much minimum to that, to what it was last time.
Beach dwellers like Lilmar Williams, meanwhile, are keeping a close watch on Hurricane Danielle, which could threaten the area within days.
I just can't believe it'll be another one, but if it is, we'll say our prayers, we'll ask everybody we know to pray for us, and then we'll come back over here and see what's left.
Charles Ziwi, CNN, Surf City, North Carolina.
And to check the weather
Howard, it's continuing to weaken as it moves on out over the open waters, west-southwest at about 8 miles per hour. Winds down to 35 miles per hour. Not going to be a threat to any land mass at this time, so that is great news. Otherwise, let's take you back to the lower 48 and see what's happening here. We have the potential for some showers and thunder showers into this particular region along that trough of low pressure. We'll keep an eye on that as well as what's happening in the tropics. You stay tuned.
Our meteorologists are keeping a close eye on Hurricane Danielle. Find out its latest track on Weather Center right after your local forecast.
This program was sponsored by Campbell's. Observe my precious little pumpkin. Would I ever mislead this adorable bundle of joy? Is the earth round? You see, he's totally into this V8 Splash juice drink. He loves that light, refreshing taste of fruit juices. So would I tell him only Splash has 100% of both vitamins A and C? That it's good for him because it's from V8? Nah. Especially when I'm about to suggest that maybe he take a baseball. V8 Splash. To health, happiness, and harmony.
Hello, folks. William Shallard here for Globe Life. We've all seen those $1 a week and so much a unit life insurance offers. But what you may not realize is many of those plans provide less than $700 of life insurance protection. But Globe's long life policy features a level $10,000 benefit available from the very first day the policy is issued. There are no waiting periods or reduced coverage in the first few years, and applying for coverage is easy. It only costs $1 to start a Globe Long Life policy. This lets you review it. If you're not completely satisfied, you can return it within 30 days for a complete refund. See for yourself why a good price doesn't always mean a good value. Maybe that's why millions of people have Globe policies. Call Globe today.
To receive complete information.
Saturday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in here to the Weather Channel. I'm Lisa Moser. It's 10 minutes till the top of the hour. This edition of the Storm Watch segment, we're looking at a few severe thunderstorms dot parts of the U.S., but we first update you with the tropical weather. It has certainly been a very active week. We bring you up to date on what is still a tropical storm. Tropical Storm Bonnie, as you recall a few days ago, brought so much trouble across the Carolina eastern parts, but at this time it is moving away from the northeast. The maximum sustained winds are at 50 miles per hour. It continues to track to the northeast, and its current movement is east-northeast at 28 miles per hour. Certainly it has picked up speed in the past 12 hours. The estimated pressure at 995 millibars. And if you're still tracking the center of Tropical Storm Bonnie, the latitude and longitude 42.3 north, 63.8 west. Let's take a look at the infrared satellite picture. You'll notice that not many of the outer bands in association with Bonnie are affecting the northeast. The cloud cover that you see here draping across New England down towards the Cape Cod and Long Island area, that's associated with the trough. And so the rain showers that we're actually seeing are also associated with that troughing. Do keep that in mind. A wider perspective of the Atlantic here. Here's Bonnie moving away from the northeast. And look at this. Here is Hurricane Danielle approaching the southeast coastal area. And I say approaching, but let me give you a little bit more information on Danielle, and then we'll get into the details. And I also want to point out this convection out towards the Caribbean and a little bit of cloud cover that's blowing up across the Gulf of Mexico. Those are a couple of things we're going to touch on at this time. First, Hurricane Danielle. In the past 12 hours, it has weakened. It's down to 80 miles per hour. The sustained winds. In the past 12 hours before that, we were looking at 90 miles per hour winds. It is still a Category 1 hurricane, meaning that the winds are below 96 miles per hour. Now, judging from the tracking, you'll notice that it has been very steady with its movement from to the west, northwest at 14 miles per hour. But the weakening trend that it experienced, that we've experienced with Danielle, is not a trend that we expect to continue. The forecast, the projection is still indicating that we're looking for Hurricane Danielle to strengthen, at least for the next day or two. So do keep that in mind, although the latest information coming out of the Hurricane Center is that it has weakened about 10 miles per hour in the past 12 hours. Looking at the satellite imagery close up, you'll notice immediately that this storm in size, not as big as what Hurricane Bonnie was when we were looking at it just to the north of the Bahamas. But right now, we're certainly concerned with the fact that it is approaching the southeast, but the good news is that our long wave pattern is going to be very favorable to steer Hurricane Danielle a little more to the north. And tomorrow morning we'll be looking for that turn to begin. And eventually we're going to look for a more northeasterly turn of of Danielle, which should reflect it and steer it away from the southeast coastal area. So between now and tomorrow afternoon, that's going to be very important to keep an eye on that turn.
or the point of turn. Now, I want to point your attention out towards the Caribbean at this time. We have a very broad area of lower pressure, and I say lower pressure because it's not that organized yet and has not been cited as a low pressure area, but the projection, the extrapolation could take us into some strengthening, and if that does occur, we'll be looking for the circulation right about in here. And we're beginning to see some cyclonic twisting, some. So we're certainly concerned because the waters out here towards the southern Gulf of Mexico, very, very warm. And you'll notice also we have a little bit of a wave out here towards the Gulf of Mexico. Some convection showing some showers and some thunderstorms with that cloud cover. So we'll watch for some of that. That could possibly even make it a little further north, maybe up around southern Louisiana. A quick note on the Pacific out here where Howard, this is the last advisory that we have to give you on tropical depression Howard. It's dissipating. Will continue to dissipate. So mariners are going to be able to get by some of these stronger winds that are currently just being reported at around 38 miles per hour for the depression of Howard. Certainly the Gulf right off of the, certainly the coastal areas right off of Mexico out in the Pacific have been very active, a hot spot for tropical development. So we continue to watch this. Back home, we have some strong thunderstorms all ahead of this troughing. This troughing extends across the Tennessee Valley back out towards Texas and is in association with the low pressure area up in upstate New York. Ahead of the troughing, we have some strong thunderstorms, and we'll tell you about those thunderstorms that are associated with some severe weather coming up next on Weather Center right here.
Our meteorologists are keeping a close eye on Hurricane Danielle. Find out its latest track on Weather Center right after your local forecast.
Hi, I'm Bob Vila, and I want to show you another great innovation in Craftsman hand tools. It's the Craftsman Quick Wrench, exclusively.
Good evening. Welcome to Storm Watch. And in Storm Watch, we talk about the tropics this time of the year. Also, we talk about some of the active weather across the U.S. But we're going to begin with the tropical update. And we have a couple of tropical systems to talk about. First, we have Hurricane Danielle. Then we're going to touch upon, a tropical wave in the Caribbean. Also, Tropical Storm Bonnie still lurking out there. And a wave coming off of Africa. Then we'll go over to the Western Pacific. Hurricane Danielle, though. Let's talk about this hurricane first, since it is close to the U.S. Winds are at 75 miles per hour. Last hour, this is the new advisory, it was at 80 miles per hour. Now the winds have dropped to about 75 miles per hour. Air Force reservists are in there taking fixes on this storm, on this hurricane, and that was what they found. Pressure at 988 millibars. Pressure has come up a little bit, as a matter of fact. And the movement has slowed down, moving west-northwest still, and we expect that to continue for the next 18 to 24 hours and then start to that recurving off to the north and northeast. But it has slowed down to about 10 miles per hour. Now, the fact that it has moved over a similar path that Hurricane Bonnie had moved over might be the reason why the winds have come down a little bit, because the hurricane sat there for a couple of days. I don't know if you remember, Bonnie sitting out here stirred up the water, brought a lot of that cooler water from the lower ocean up. So temperatures, sea surface temperatures are actually a little bit cooler than on average, but they're still warm enough to sustain a tropical system. And as you can see, the convection not as tightly wound around the center of the deep convection as it was earlier. Now, as it moves towards the west-northwest, it'll move away from this area that's been stirred up by Hurricane Bonnie, and it could intensify a little bit more over the next 24 to 48 hours or so as it continues on that west-northwest track. But I know if you live in Florida all the way up to the mid-Atlantic coast, you are watching this very closely, as we are, and as the Hurricane Center is also, and you're wondering, is it going to come right into Florida or the mid-Atlantic states? Well, all of the computer models that the Hurricane Center looks at pretty much in agreement to recurve this hurricane out into the Atlantic. And the reason for it is we have a trough. You can kind of see how that's coming down in like this. This trough will be deepening over the eastern U.S. in the next 24 hours. And the westerlies will become predominant, or southwesterlies here, over the eastern half of the country. So that will pick up the hurricane and move it out into the Atlantic, steer it out into the Atlantic, away from the U.S. mainland. Now, I just want to make you aware of this. The forecast track could change. Okay, a lot of things could happen. The timing could be off with this trough coming in. So if you do live along the eastern coast, probably a good idea to check in with us again tomorrow to make sure that it has begun that more northerly track tomorrow afternoon. Okay, we'll keep you posted on Hurricane Danielle. Now, what about Tropical Storm Bonnie? Tropical Storm Bonnie on its way to becoming extratropical, losing its tropical characteristics. Winds are at 60 miles per hour, pressure at 988 millibars, moving east-northeast very rapidly at 35 miles per hour. It is just now south of Newfoundland, but it'll be moving out, and it's something we don't have to be concerned about anymore. Here's a satellite picture of it. Here, let me move out of the way so you can see it. And again, not even really looking tropical in nature anymore, so probably on the way to becoming extratropical for sure by tomorrow. Now, an area that we are watching that, well, if you live along the Gulf Coast, you're going to want to pay attention to this. This wave came off of Africa, moved into the Caribbean, and actually it's been sitting here, and it's interacting with a lot of land areas, Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula, so it's having a hard time organizing into any kind of a tropical system. But once this wave does move into the Gulf of Mexico, it'll be slow to develop, but it's possible it could develop into a tropical system. So if you live along the Gulf Coast, you got vacation plans, check us out, 50 past the hour. We'll let you know what's happening with this wave as it does move into the Gulf of Mexico. Another one coming off of Africa. Here it is. A really decent spin with this, some convection with it. It's possible this could become a tropical depression over the next couple of days, but it does have a pretty strong upper level low off to the west that's going to have to contend with unless that tropical low or that upper level low moves west and kind of out of the way. Then we're going to have to worry about this one possibly coming up with tropical depression. Now into the western Pacific, where we have Typhoon Rex. And Typhoon Rex continuing on its northerly track. It could affect Tokyo with some heavy rain and winds, but the good news is it's forecast to weaken as it continues on a northeasterly track, on a northerly track, and then start to recurve and become extratropical. Now, what about the U.S.? Well, we do have a few showers and thunderstorms still in Texas that have been producing some heavy rainfall. More details next on Weather Center. Don't go away.
From Southern California to Texas, many areas hit triple digits. Is another heat wave in the making? Weather Center is ahead after your local forecast.
When you find yourself trying to fix something in a tight, dimly lit spot, you can now shed some light on the job with the Craftsman Bright Dryer.